Got Sean Connolly here. Did I say that right?
Coloney.
Oh, did I get L and the N mixed up?
Yeah.
Oh,
Everybody
shit.
does, even when it's spelled correctly. No, I don't think anybody's ever gotten it right.
Sean Connolly.
Yes, sir.
Okay, okay. I like it. And
I'm
you're
very
originally
used
from
to that.
Jersey, right?
Yeah. The
Makes
beautiful
sense.
state of New Jersey on the East Coast.
I had a layover in Jersey one time.
Were you in New York
Those are
or
the
Newark?
best. I was in Newark.
Yep.
Newark. Oh my god, dude. It was a lot. We went out. I went out with my buddy who was living in New York.
Mm-hmm.
Took the train, came and hang out. We went out to a couple bars. That was cool, actually,
Yeah.
going out to the bars. But man, dealing with Newark Airport was a lot.
Sure. The city's cool. I always joke like, whenever we would be on vacation, even as kids or growing up, like you land back in Newark and it's like it's black and white, like an old like TV film or something like that, because just the air smells and it's like a very weird place. Traveling to New York from Newark stinks because you just got off a plane and now it's like a super hot subway or like
Oh, geez, yeah.
Yeah.
And it's like like an hour, right?
it's a big commute. Yeah, it's far.
Yeah. Damn. So, okay, originally from Jersey. I mean, how'd you end up out here? We're in Colorado.
Sure. Yeah. So, kind of like a funny story. So, my wife, we were dating forever before we got married, and probably right after we graduated college, like 2016, 2017, we just started talking, and every year for her birthday, like get her a necklace or something like that, and go out to dinner. And
Yeah.
after so many years of doing that, we like kind of decided, we were like, hey, why don't for your birthday every year we just take a vacation, just us, and go away somewhere new that we haven't seen before, like just us, no family, anything like that. So I remember 2017, the first year we did it, she was like, I want to go to Colorado. And I was like, all right, cool. Like never been out there, heard great things, and was definitely interested to do a fun vacation where like we were hiking and mixing other stuff in. So we came out to Denver in 2017, stayed in Denver for a few nights. And at the time, one of my good buddies from college was living in Boulder. So we connected with him and he was like, yeah, come stay with me for a night and I'll show you around Boulder. And we were like, all right, cool. Like never really knew anything about Boulder, but knew like the college was out here. And we were like, whatever, we'll check it out. So like anybody that's ever driven like on 36 or from Denver or that area into Boulder, we were like immediately captivated, because if you've ever taken that ride, you come kind of down this hill on 36 and you're just going
opens
into
up.
a valley.
Yeah.
Like a valley of mountains, like full 360 all around you. Because Denver's cool, but you don't really see the mountain range or anything like that.
No.
So immediately we were like, whoa, this is like kind of crazy. And obviously coming from New Jersey, like we have trees and hills, maybe if you get close to Pennsylvania, but no mountains or anything.
Right.
So anyway, we get to Boulder and my buddy's living, he's renting out a room in this like house on top of the hill, which is like really like poppin'. Bunch of kids are out. It was like a Saturday, so all the college kids were out. Like
How old were you at this time?
so we were like 23,
Oh, okay.
right around there, 22, 23.
So still like very
So
relative
in that
to that
age, yeah. So
yeah.
it kind of like, it was the perfect storm, right? Like here we are, we're tourists, we see beautiful Boulder. We're still at the age where like, the young kids don't really
Right.
bother us because we were those bothering young kids.
Yeah.
So we get to this place and like he's got a pretty cool setup in this house, and we're like pregame and we're drinking beers on his roof, which is like awesome. And his roommate comes home from like a huge 14er, and I was like, I don't know what that is. And they were like explaining that to us, and I started talking to this kid, and he was like, oh, you're from Jersey? Like, I'm from New York. I just moved here, a year ago. And I was like, oh, for work? Or he was like, no, he was like a investment banker, had a really good job in New York. And he was like, I hated my life, and I moved out here to Boulder to like start running and training and like get in better shape. And I was like mind blown. Cause at that time, like I'm just out of college. I'm looking for something solid. You know what I mean? Like trying to hold on to whatever 9 to 5 I can find in between bartending. And this kid was like, had a really good setup, and he left it all behind to come to Boulder. And I like, that was the first time when I was like, wow, like, so you can do that.
Right.
You know what I
right.
mean? Like, so that was like a big thing for me, meeting cool people that just like, he literally told me he came out to Boulder and he was like, called his roommate and was like, yo, sell my bed. Like I'll pay you the
No
last
way.
month rent and I'm not coming back.
Instantly fell in love.
Yeah. So we go out that night and we hit Pearl Street, and again, I was a little bit younger at the time and I was a tourist at the time, so the lights were a little bit bright, but like we'd never seen a town with like so much juice, and every bar we went to was packed and everybody was cool and nice, and we went to like 4 bars and every single one was cooler than the next one. And I remember just thinking like, this is like such a cool town. And pretty much every year after that, for her birthday, we would come back to Colorado. Like every year she was like, I want to go to Colorado. So we did Colorado Springs one year. We went up to Breckenridge one year. So when we were thinking about moving out of Jersey for good, Colorado was like her do or do. Like it was like, I'm moving to Colorado. I'm not re-signing a lease here. If you want to come with me, you can come with me. And I was like, all right, cool. Like
twisting my arm
yeah,
a little bit.
I don't really have a choice. And I like you and everything like that. And obviously it worked out. But then we were like, all right, well, where do we go? And we just thought back to that one literally 24-hour
experience
stint that we spent in Boulder, and picked Boulder, and obviously started like building our lives around that. So like started working in Boulder. She got a job in Boulder, and we realized like how cool and centralized it was. Like you're so close to Denver, you're so close to the airport.
Right.
You're not too far from the Springs or Fort Collins.
I think definitely
like
within drivable, just especially coming from big city, like Jersey.
Absolutely. And like, we had the city an hour from us and the beach an hour from us, but it was really cool. Like when we first moved here, like we went to more concerts in the first year than we had gone probably in our like whole stint in New Jersey. And we were going to Broncos games and Nuggets games, and everything was like so easily commutable.
And so real quick, what year was it that you decided to make that move?
So that was like a little bit over 3 years ago. Our lease was coming up, and
like end of 2021.
Yeah, I think it was like July of 2021 or 22. Because I remember we got here on the 4th of July.
Got you. Okay.
And we we packed up a U-Haul and then threw our Jeep on the back and hitched it up and just had everything packed to the gills. And it took us a couple days to get out here, and I drove the whole way. So like we got here and I took our mattress out and I put it in our apartment, and I was like, all right, we need to like go to a dispensary and then go to like dinner. And we went to this like dive bar, and it was like relatively empty, and the bartender was just like, yeah, it's the 4th of July, dude. Like everybody's camping and hiking, and that was another like mind-blowing moment, because like 4th of July in Jersey, everybody, parties in their backyard or barbecues or even goes to the beach or something. And here it is, it's like everybody's like going on like cool hikes and camping and like something other than just like
what you
the party culture.
Right. That's interesting to see like the two different types of lifestyles, and kind of like the culture shock coming out here. I definitely experienced that a bit when I first, my first year being out here, and especially in Boulder, but also I did a good amount of time in Vail.
Yeah, sure.
And being that it's so kind of remote, really out there in the mountains, it's interesting. It was definitely a culture shock for sure.
Yeah, I mean, we joke because every bar you go into in Boulder has like a pool table or something.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Like,
right.
Well, because they need to give people a reason to go into bars and stuff. Because like back in Jersey, it's just we got wooden bar stools in a bar, like pull up and drink.
Right. So you show up, you're getting settled. You're kind of really getting more of the shock of like actually being there, not being a tourist, and really trying to settle in. What were kind of like the next steps that you guys did? I mean, just kind of went from trying to find a job and just
100%. Yeah. I mean, she had a remote job at the time, so I was really just looking for anything quick that could like supplement income while I tried to find the bigger, better next thing. But ultimately I landed a bartending job. I like started part-time and then pretty quickly was able to move into full-time, and then worked really closely like with the bar manager on moving into like more of like a lead role.
This is on Pearl Street.
Yeah. So moving to Pearl Street as a bartender, and I was like super pumped. I was like, I'm probably going to be able to retire in 5 years. I was working at this like really cool like cocktail bar, and then at night it would turn more into like a club. And you've spoken about it before. It's Rosetta on Pearl Street, and it was a really cool opportunity for me because my bartending history had been, you know, more of like towny bars and then like high volume college bars.
And back in Jersey.
Yeah,
right?
back in Jersey. So this was a great opportunity for me to learn like
The step
true
up kinda.
cocktail bar making, which I learned like a ton there through like my coworkers and my boss at the time. And then like right at 10 o'clock, I think you just turn the lights down and pack the place with as many kids as you can get. So I started working there, and she slowly transitioned into a new position in Boulder as well. But yeah, man, we were just trying to like find our way, and we were really enjoying it. I mean, I know like I said, there was so much juice to Pearl Street and everything when we visited, but like you could tell COVID had done like a little bit of its damage.
Yeah, I was gonna ask about that. Being that you had your first experience in 2017,
Sure.
continuously coming back, and then COVID, little after COVID, you decided to actually make the full move.
Yeah.
You know, obviously things are different, you know, COVID kind of did its thing. But I also have heard a lot of people say that COVID almost didn't touch Boulder in many ways. Of course it did, but you know, there's kind of this saying that Boulder is kind of this almost like this bubble that has reality around it, you know, and that it's kind of in that sense this, for lack of a better term, almost like this fairy tale type place.
Sure.
Not really. You could use a better term for that, but you know what I'm saying, in the sense that it almost seems like perfect in every way. So what was that like post COVID actually settling down there, and then maybe seeing differences, or just what if you saw any differences?
Yeah, I mean, to your point, like the one good thing was, you know, you always have your mountains and your trails and your outdoors. So like the actual beauty of Boulder was still there, you know, like you still had plenty of things to do actively.
Right.
I think the biggest thing, I guess, that I noticed initially, because even like I was pretty new in the area, but everybody I worked with or talked to was like, oh, you know, like this spot used to be great, but it closed down during COVID, or, you know, this place used to be like a really good spot to go to, but, you know, it just couldn't handle COVID. And I think that's when like you guys talk about it a lot, like the liminal side of Boulder, like being in that in-between area, like Boulder had this crazy identity, and then, you know, a pandemic rolls through, and now it's like, well, all these, you know, self-owned or like small mom and pop shop places that couldn't hang, were forced to either, you know, move outside of Boulder or just close down for good. And that's when kind of like the big brother or like these big corporations came in and kind of started like swooping up all the real estate for, you know, like bigger restaurants that were like fully funded by investors and stuff like that. So I think that's the biggest hit, I think, that I can attest to from my like little bit of knowledge, because there was a lot of spots that didn't make it. And now you just see like newer spots that are run by these corporations come in and kind of, you know, come in with like a big corporate plan and not really like, what does Boulder need, or what is the pulse of Boulder? You know what I mean? They don't really have that risk of failing because they always have their like investors and backing.
Right. And I think that plays into the fact that there is so much money in Boulder. There's so much, you know, big like life science. There's a lot of, you know, there's engineering. There's a lot of big companies that come out of here. Tech, huge, right?
Sure.
So, you know, I think just based off of kind of research and just people I've talked to, it would seem that these places, whether it be big banks or these corporate type of restaurants, want to have a concept out here in Boulder, and, you know, see that there's money to tap into. But it is strange when it's like, being one of those people that is a consumer / working in that industry, and kind of realizing that, oh yeah, maybe these places really aren't hitting it on the head with of the nail, where they don't really feel the pulse, like you said.
Sure.
Not really kind of engaging in what the community might actually kind of feel, or just the basic kind of needs, and seeing where it's gone to. And I think a lot of the surrounding development too has kind of made a huge impact on that as well.
Yeah, definitely.
Considering how much COVID impacted that surrounding Boulder, with a lot of the developing parts of the cities that kind of surround Boulder. So it is interesting, as someone that's a consumer and someone that works in the industry as well,
right.
to
you
kind
see,
of
behind the curtain.
a little bit, you know, it's like, oh, you maybe see where they're trying to go, but you're like, it just doesn't really feel right.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, like when I started at Rosetta, I remember one of my coworkers was telling me, like, yeah, like we try and get busy for late nights, but this bar is not really built to handle that. And I was like, I mean, we have like 5 wells behind this bar.
It's big. Like, it's like it's a 2-story, bar. But yeah.
So I was like, I kind of disagreed. And then, like, to go into that, like, I was working, you know, with all my coworkers and my boss, and we were trying to like find that identity of like, what is this bar? How can we maximize our profit, and how can we obviously make as much money as possible? And that's like a whole nother game of, you know, you ride a fine line in Boulder where you want to cater to all ages. And you also want to cater to the massive population of college students, because that's a huge market.
Yeah.
But you don't want to be like dictated by them.
Yeah.
Because then that pretty much takes away all of your opportunity for being anything other than just like a college bar. Because
then you're just this college bar. Yeah, exactly.
Right. And there's many like examples of that where, you know, there's some great dive bars in Boulder, and on the wrong night at 10 or 11 p.m. it's like it's filled with college kids, which is great, man. Like this is like their town, but again, that's like kind of that line you walk. So we were trying to figure out, like, you know, my boss was like, all right, well, what we're gonna do is we're gonna bring in, you know, college DJs from like some of the fraternities at the college, because then they can tell everybody, and then we'll be busy all night. And then, you know, some of the college DJs came in, and then there were a couple more issues with security and fights and stuff. So then you try and peel back from that a little bit more, and then you know, you try and do other things, and it's really like a guessing game. But I think the most important thing is like trying to stay true to what your identity is, but also like remaining on that pulse of like, what does Boulder need?
Right, for sure. And that's it's hard to find.
100%.
And if you don't have someone at the top that's kind of putting that vibe all the way down to your employees, it's a lot harder on you as an employee on the base level, even for management, to figure out what that is. Because there's only so much reach when you're a manager, when you're an employee, versus an owner operator, you know, that probably has a lot of other ties, being a business owner on Pearl Street in Boulder. And not really having that backing. Yeah. So yeah, it's interesting to see, because, you know, I worked there too, obviously.
Sure.
And it was a couple years after you had worked there, but same issues, still trying to figure out what it was and trying to ride that line. But I'm curious, for you in particular, working in Jersey, having that bartending experience, trying to find the 9 to 5, but you were saying, oh man, pumping out volume, you're thinking you're going to make this money. What were the realities of actually, you know, what you're earning, what you were taking home?
Yeah. And I mean, that was a world that I had never lived in when I was bartending in New Jersey, compared to like here in Boulder. I came here and pretty much, you know, I worked at two spots on Pearl Street, and both of them were by this like big pool system. So that was like my first experience with that. I mean, when I was,
yeah, I know what you mean.
When I was back in Jersey, I remember the first place I actually ever started working. Like I started in the kitchen as a 16-year-old and worked there for a lot of time in and out of college whenever I was home on break. And I ended up bartending there for a while. And, we brought home cash every night based on what our tips were.
Right.
And then, the other place that I worked that I would like say I did pretty well at in Jersey, I would count my tips every night. I would log it in a tip book, and then I would get paid that exact amount at the end of the week. So I came out to Boulder, and, I was working at this bar where, we were selling drinks for 13, 15 bucks a pop. And then at night we were, pumping out volume, but it was, like a week-long tip pool. And it just confused me a little bit because I know, we've spoken a little bit before, but like you work your ass off all night, and, you're cleaning the bar at like 1:30 and there's garbage everywhere. And you're like, man, like we did good tonight. And some nights I would close down like some of the registers and look at like our total sales for even just late night. And I'd be like, man, those are some good numbers. And then, you get your check and it's pretty much like the same as always.
Doesn't add up.
Yeah. So
right. And it's so soul crushing too, because you want to what you like, and you would enjoy doing it, right?
100%.
And you work your ass off, and you think, it's worth it.
Yeah.
And then you get your check, and you're like, oh.
I think the only time I would ever notice like a sizable difference was like graduation week or something like that. You know what I mean? Where like the volume,
it's like daytime and nighttime,
Tuesday to Saturday, no matter what. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, it's just, it was a newer thing to me. And, everywhere that I did work in Boulder had this like tip pool system, and it was confusing to me. And after looking deeper into it, we would work with management on making like small, tiny adjustments, but it just goes back to like, owners and how they have their business models set up. And it's tough, right? Because like, there's so many places in Boulder and so many places that do similar things. So your margins are always going to be super thin. But it's just it's a strange world to come into where like, when I was in Jersey, I worked at this one place and it was gross. Like we served plastic cups from open to close. Like it was just not a good place, but we made good money there. And then you come here and like, I'm making, if I was at Service Well, I would make like 6 old fashions on a ticket or all these martinis and stuff. And
it's a nice place.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. And, the paycheck didn't always reflect, I guess what what I thought my effort was.
Right.
But again, like that's just the day and age, I guess, that we are in, and kind of what most of the models are in Boulder. And sorry, go ahead.
No.
It's funny because like some of the most sought after bartending jobs in Boulder are like the oldest, diviest places.
Right.
Like,
right. Isn't
you
that
can't
crazy?
Get a job there unless someone retires or dies.
That's
right?
so funny. I went through that same experience, and they literally told me that they're like, these guys have been here for like 20 years.
They're not going anywhere.
Years.
Like the pub, dude. The pub has like several dudes that like should be retired by now, but like they make so much money, and they're like, I'm not going anywhere. Like, why would I?
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah.
And those type of places too. The stress is so much lower. And it's not even to bag on them in any way. Like I love those types of dive bars,
right?
But they don't have to worry about the craft cocktail. Like, I have no doubt that a lot of these guys, being that they've doing this for a while, know how to make so many traditional cocktails for sure. But it's not the same as you go into a place that is like based on craft cocktail, and it's interesting to see like, oh, you think you're going up in a level of standard,
right?
But it's so weird how the pay doesn't add up,
Yeah.
And the segue I was going to go into that is that we met at a more fine dining establishment, right? And I'm just curious for you in particular what that experience was like, going to a totally different level of experience, a different level or different standard of service, and just what that was kind of like being in the same city,
Yeah. I mean, it was at the time like a really good move for me. I was, obviously getting older like everybody does, and was tired of coming home from work at like 2-3 in the morning every night. So found an opportunity to move into more of like a fine dining place where I would get home, latest like midnight or something like that. Again, was very excited. We were selling gin and tonics for $20 a pop and stuff like that. And it was also cool to work at a place where like I was fully behind like everything that we did there and we sold there. Like it was really cool to be proud of a place that you were working at, as opposed to like a lot of bartending jobs, you take just to like, because they're open or you need to like make some quick cash or something like that. So it was cool. People, friends, family would come in and I'd be able to show them like this beautiful place, a beautiful view in Boulder. Proud of. Yeah. And, it was just, I think the most jarring thing was like the difference in pay was like almost minimal. And, it was weird. The hours were better and stuff like that. But like you, again, like move into this new spot and you're like, oh, well, this is going to be different. Again, on Pearl Street in Boulder, like one of the finer dining places in town. And you really think like, okay, well, this is like finally a place where I'm going to step up and like move into the next like level. And again, like kind of like a tip pool thing, a little bit of a newer like format for me, but it was a little jarring, the minimal difference that it made. I enjoyed learning new things there and enjoyed my coworkers, you for one, for sure. Which is funny that we're here now because like half of the conversations we had at work there were like, dude, what does Boulder need, man? Like,
yeah, that's so funny. Yeah.
So like, it's funny to like do it behind a mic now, but yeah, I mean, it was definitely different, definitely new for me, definitely fun, but just kind of like a reminder where, especially living in Boulder at the time, I was like, I'm going to need to either pick up a second job or find something else just because of how expensive Boulder is in general. And like, getting older and moving on to bigger and better things, like you need to find a better way to supplement the income.
Yeah, absolutely. And so you actually did do that, right?
Sure. Yeah, I got really lucky. I was, looking for a while and just timing wise found a new position and kind of got back into the 9-to-5 world of like recruiting and HR, which is, something I cut my teeth at for a really long time in Jersey. Definitely almost like that show Scared Straight where you bring like a bad kid into prison, like bartended enough years in succession where I was like, all right, well, like don't mess this opportunity up. Make sure you take full advantage of it. But yeah, still like working a 9-to-5 that's definitely working out better for me and still definitely on the hunt for something to do like on the weekends. Cause, it's tough to, just live in Boulder. It's tough to also like live and save. So when you're trying to move on and build all these things with your life, we just got married, so we're trying to build onto new things.
Yeah, congrats on that, brother. Yeah.
And it was about time. So
moved halfway across the country with each other,
Yeah, I had to. But yeah, still definitely looking for something, on the side because it is that tough to
while
be
having a 9-to-5, a full time. Interesting. And so you guys got married. What like are your plans to like buy a house or rent?
Yeah, so we just closed on a house.
Nice.
Very happy for that process to be all done and finished. It's just anxiety all the time, but we are moving outside of Boulder, and it's funny because we love Boulder and would love to stay here, but it's really, really impossible to find anything that has like either a front yard or a backyard or a front door for like under $800,000 or close to $1 million. So it was funny because even when we started looking, like, and we worked with a realtor, like Boulder was never even on our radar.
Yeah.
And it's just simply because it's just not feasible for, two average people to find something that works. And it sucks, man, because like I talked about, like when I first visited here, it's like such a young, fun area, but then you have, the restaurant space and real estate, and then all the surrounding real estate, like actual like homeowners are just dominated by corporations or, you know, super, super wealthy people that I honestly don't even think really live here during the full year. So like these people buy up all these houses and, you know, during the summer they're in Texas or California and then they come here for 2 months in the winter to ski. And so it's tough because like you're not getting that money back into Boulder.
Right.
But you're just
It seems like the only ones that do have housing here that actually do live here and that are really like a true Boulderite or have been here since the fucking 80s or like the late 90s or, you know, for decades, right?
If you got here when the getting was good, like good on you, because if you were here in like the early 2000s, even like early 2010s, like you could find something. And now you're just sitting on a landmine.
Right.
Like it's great, but yeah, it's become like, it's ballooned into this like crazy, almost like imaginary real estate world.
And you know, that's so fun. Like just listening to your whole story, right? And first coming out here, experiencing it for what, and falling in love, right?
Yeah, head over heels.
Just enough to where you and your lady decided to move all the way across the country to live here, right?
I truly think it was like 12 to 24 hours that we were here.
And so with that experience and then being here for a few years now and just kind of seeing the realities of actually trying to make a life here, it seems that there's so many people that I've met out here that are in the same exact boat. And whether it's meeting them, talking to them, such as people yourself, working with them, or even just seeing, you know, reading on Reddit, other chat forums. Reddit's like a huge thing out here.
Yeah.
And so
I'm still learning it.
Yeah, the same here. But I was like, oh, everybody, you know.
But just old man on the porch that doesn't
reading
know.
on those types of chats, and especially for people our age, there's so many of them where it's like, oh, you know, where do I go to meet people our age or talk about loneliness or whatever it is? And then almost every time in the comments, it's like, yeah, like the most likely you're going to move. Yeah, you're going to move somewhere else. I'll go to the city because you're not going to find what you're looking for here. It's so interesting to see that so many of us, people like us, that find, you know, some sort of resonance in this place and then make that trek. And then slowly but surely, as the veil is pulled back, you just kind of realize the reality of trying to make it out here. And it's kind of sad. You know?
It sucks. I mean, the one beautiful thing about like what you just said is that like there are still so many people that are willing to like fight the fight and like stick it out. Because, you know, you do hope that Boulder like bounces back, and I think they're doing some great things like within the community to try and bring a little bit more life back into it. But it's really cool to see like people are like, oh, like, no, like this is still Boulder and it is still a beautiful place. It's just, you know, like there's such a disconnect, like we keep talking about, between business owners and what Boulder needs, and like the age discrimination. Like there are no places that aren't dominated, you know, by like the younger age group, where there are a ton of kids like, you know, mine and your age around here. So you hope that like a couple places start popping in the next few months or in the next year, and help kind of find its way back, because there's so many people that do want to live here and like live the good life of Boulder in the bubble. And that's what's so hard about like moving away, is like you have everything you need here. You're so close to everything. You know, in our first like 2 years of being here, we barely went to Denver because we had everything we needed within that bubble. So like it's tough, and it is still a beautiful place, but it's definitely just needs a little bit of love and care. And I think really like I go back to when I was at Rosetta and we were actually like really doing some good numbers at certain times. I think the best things that we were doing was like our management was listening to the workers. Because, you know, like you said, like management's not always there. Owners are rarely ever there. So to listen to the people that like are on the front line, so to speak, will help you, you know, build a little bit better of a business model. And I'm not saying that like I did anything substantial, but as a collective, like if you could just meet with your staff and, you know, hey, what are you guys seeing? What's working? What's selling? What's not?
And you would think like that would be kind of like a common sense type thing.
We had a meeting every week, so I don't know if a lot of places do that, but when we were doing well, we were, going over that stuff, and it's important. And again, like on a larger scale, that's just like listening to what the streets are saying, right? Like what's going on these nights? When's our busiest night? When's our slowest night? What can we do that nobody else is doing? Like, I said it before off camera, but like, I love how Folsom Field, the football field at CU, is like bringing back concerts during the summer.
Right.
Because like for the longest time, it was very limited to like pretty much just Dead. And in the past, they had done a couple other ones, but like they had like a huge DJ, and I'm going to get roasted because I don't know who it was. They had Tyler Childers come in, and I went out for lunch one of those days where like one of those concerts was in town. It was packed everywhere.
Yeah.
So like obviously Dion helps with football and everything, and on home games like Boulder's buzzing, and he brings in something like $8 million a home game or some crazy stat like that. But like opening up Folsom to like more concerts and packing that place every weekend that there's not a football game.
Right.
Like,
it's like you can't just solely rely on CU football.
No.
Yeah,
and
there's
like
so much more.
You have this beautiful, like there are cool concerts up at the Broncos Stadium, but like Folsom Field's one of the most beautiful places I've ever been as far as a venue.
Man, yeah.
So like utilize what you have in Boulder and the beauty of Boulder to really like bring people back in here. Cause I think I remember like one of the concerts, we had all these people come in from Denver, you know what I mean? And like, normally, people in Denver stay in Denver because they know like, well, Boulder is a little bit too young for me, or like stuff like that. So you bring new eyes into the town, and then people start saying like, oh yeah, actually like Boulder still does rock. So
right. When it rocks when it rocks. Right. Yeah.
Like, yeah. If you use it, if you use Boulder, they will come, or whatever they say.
That's so funny. Oh man. It's like for that, Field of Dreams, I think.
Yeah.
Quote.
If you build it.
Yeah. If you build it, it will come. Yeah. If you use it, it will come. Which it's going to the whole point of everything that you're saying, right? This whole conversation is that Boulder is beautiful, and it has so much to it, and a lot of rich kind of cool history behind it too.
Sure.
It just, like you said, I think you said it perfectly. It just needs a little bit of love and care right now.
Yeah.
And what that answer is, I'm sure there's a few answers of what they can do. But I think it definitely does start with kind of the idea of where you're going with, the communication with the people that are actually living the life day to day on the social fabric side, and just kind of getting back into what, makes it a vibrant place, and not just a big, and not just like a revenue generator on the big company side, right?
Yeah.
Whether it be tech or banks, it's like those things, I think I said this once before. It's like those things, those types of businesses, they're essential for sustaining life, but it's like, what do you live for if there's not something to go enjoy yourself afterwards?
Yeah.
People, community, experience, that whole type of thing.
Sure.
So yeah, it's interesting. I would love to see where the next few years Boulder's gonna be like.
We'll see. I mean, like community, even too. That's a big thing. Like, you want to be in like when I was in Jersey at this one town, they had adult like softball leagues or dodgeball teams or basketball, like stuff like that, and you can't find any of that stuff in Boulder, which is crazy because so many college kids, grad students, post grad. And that like goes outside of just building like a restaurant or a bar that like does something cool that nobody else does. Like if there was more community, it would bring, a little bit more life to Boulder during the weekdays.
Right.
And just to like the idea of living here, like you said, people are on Reddit trying to find friends.
Yeah, that's crazy.
That's a nuts sentence to say out of my mouth, and to hear it come out of my mouth is a wild thing. But like, yeah, I mean, a place like this where there's so much outdoor activity or athletic people or moving people that want stuff to do.
Mm-hmm.
And like, I swear I looked for like my first 2 years of living here, I was looking for basketball leagues and stuff like that. And everything's in Denver or Bloomfield and stuff. And it's just like, well, why? There's like tons of gyms around here.
Strange aspect, huh?
Dope college with like a awesome athletic facility that's not used for half the year when kids are not in school. So yeah, I think people just need to like look a little bit more into building more community, you know?
Right.
I don't know.
And it's funny, the community I do see, like when I'm reading in these chat forums or when I'm actually talking to, you know, people just around you, most of the time it's like, oh yeah, we're like in hiking communities or like biking communities. It's like, all right, get it. That's awesome.
Right.
That's always been here though. And there's obviously something missing, you know, and it's like what you're saying, these other types of outings that you can do. And it's weird because the amount of kids from the student body from CU that end up leaving within a year or two after graduating, you know, because they're like, well, there's nothing out here for me to do,
which is
strange.
Wild, because like, I mean, there's some great colleges out there, but like I walk out of my house some days and it's like 80 degrees, and I'm like, dude, how, like, first of all, how do kids even go to class? Like, because it's just so nice and fun here, but like to be able to grow up here and like really have your formative years throughout college and build like a solid group out here. And then like after college to be like, all right, well, actually there's other places, like where else would you go? Like it's a heaven on earth, and it's crazy that people are foregoing it just because like some people are missing the mark.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, that'll be a clip. Well, shoot, I think we're kind of wrapping up here on time. I am just curious, you know, we always trying to have our guests kind of like say one last thing, which I think you've pretty much been saying it this whole time, but it's
I've been yapping.
What was that?
I've been yapping.
I mean, it's great. I love it. I love it. We always ask guests though, you know, if there was one or two things that you would like to see different or just change or happen in Boulder or even the surrounding areas, what would it be? Like I said, I think you've been pretty much hitting it all, on the head already. But
the end all be all or the guy that's gonna fix it. But yeah, I mean, like it's about community, right? Like bars are gonna come and go and stuff like that. I think we need to keep filling Folsom with concerts. I think more places need to do, you know, live music during the week. Open mics during the week, you know what I mean? Like stuff like that. Yeah. Like, more stuff that people can get involved in. Because if, you know, simply serving drinks and cocktails isn't going to work for a bar or a restaurant, you need to find a way to get people involved, and have a little bit of personality brought back into your place of business. So I don't know. I think like karaoke, open mics, concerts, live music, you know, like we said, like sports teams and stuff like that, like stuff that people can go out and do in groups together.
Right.
Will result in, you know, in a cheesy way, like more memories and more opportunity to make friends and, you know, meet people. Yeah. So
maybe find the one, you know.
You could.
Yeah.
I'm glad I don't have to, because I'd be on Reddit, I guess.
Oh man. Damn, well, thank you so much, man.
Yeah, it's an honor.
Yeah, I'm glad, you know, I'm glad you hit us up to be on here. I when you did, I was like, oh, it's perfect. Perfect freaking person to have in here. So great to have you on. Thanks for talking. And for all of you listening out there, you know, again, as always, if you like any of our content, please reach out. We love to have feedback. We'd also love to have new people. If you feel interested in coming on, let us know. Social medias, all the listening platforms. But yeah, thanks for listening, and thank you, my man.
Appreciate it. Yeah, it's an honor.
Cheers.
Thanks.